What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Around the NBA, a podcast where I get my thoughts on the latest news, transactions, teams, and players across the league. And joining me here once again is my brother, aka Captain Crunch, as you guys now know him as. And now people can actually put a face to the name because he's been stitching and reacting to my my TikToks.
I only go on TikTok at this. If you see all of my videos, it's just me responding to your take.
Yeah, I got people telling me, are asking if we're twins. I've had people say that's my burner account. I've had people say that your takes are nastier than mine, and that's not a good thing because people say I have pretty nasty takes.
No, I think we must be related because your takes are pretty hot. And you get them from somewhere.
Yeah, they're not easy to accept or to take in. But thank you for being here again, man. Last time you were here was around halfway point of the season, so. Yep. There's a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about the NBA top 75 or the 75th anniversary team. I haven't actually talked about that on the show, so this is a good episode to talk about that. We'll talk about Jokic and his back-to-back MVP. So we have a couple of topics. We have several things to talk about with you guys today. So, but as we know, the NBA Finals is amongst us. And last night we had Game 1. So first topic of conversation is obviously the NBA Finals and Game 1. And we'll get to our predictions and where do we see where this is going. But what are your thoughts after Game 1?
It was an interesting game. It was such an up and down game. I was talking to you about how I lost interest, I think, towards the end of the second quarter. I thought, looks like a runaway game here. And I started a little bit flipping the channels, my bad. I checked the game because you in the finals or when you're watching games, you come back, you check the scores frequently to see where you're standing. And then you saw it getting tighter. And then they were down by like 4, maybe 3. I'm like, whoa, maybe I should get back on. And I started watching it. And then on the fourth quarter, they went on that crazy run.
They outscored them. I think it was 40-16.
Wow.
The fourth quarter alone.
That's insane.
Yeah.
The fourth, 40-16.
It was 40-16. And there was a point where it was like, I think the Warriors didn't make a bucket for like a 5-minute stretch. It was like a 5-6 minute stretch where they didn't make a basket.
Yes, it was like a 6-minute stretch where they were bucketless.
They weren't hitting anything. And I watched the whole game, but I was watching it with my wife, Orlean, and we were watching it. And once the third quarter, when they went on their run in the third quarter, their typical Warriors run in the third quarter, I'm like, this is over. I'm like, this is
I'm like, I could see where people would think that. Now, before we get to our predictions, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Now, obviously, there's the predictions before the first game, and now there's the predictions when you have a little bit of data. So, did yesterday's game change your pick, or did it make your pick a little, or did it solidify the pick you were going with before the game?
So it didn't sway my pick because it's just one game. It's game 1. But I'm not gonna get into my prediction, but it didn't sway me. It didn't sway me. But I'm not gonna say it caught me by surprise. But I would say it's gonna be a closer series than what I anticipated, I think.
Okay.
I didn't expect it to be a blowout necessarily. Like I didn't expect, one team to blow out the other. But there was just, I'll get into that in a minute, but no, it did not sway. It did not sway me.
It didn't sway you? Okay.
No.
So I won't answer that question yet because we'll get to it. But We were talking about predictions, and I think the heavy favorites. I haven't checked the Las Vegas odds, or at least before the finals. I should have, but I bet they had the Warriors favored. All the ESPN analysts, the typical analysts, it was like 70% Warriors. So people were counting on the Warriors, and they were the heavy favorites. But it just again, Captain Crunch, numbers are my thing. I go to 5. Nate Silver, he's a guru. I know Nate Silver, right?
Yeah.
So he started in politics and predicting Senate races and the presidency, and he was like a master at that. Now he's kind of doing ESPN bought him.
Yeah.
And now he's doing sports, but doing predictions. His prediction completely the opposite, where he had the Celtics before the series started at 80% chance of winning, 80%. And people obviously gave him a hard time. They wrote an article saying that they may have overestimated the Celtics, but that people are underestimating the Celtics. And I think yesterday proved it a little bit that
for sure.
It's a real team.
And as when I was talking to you about this earlier, the Celtics, they're a good team. I actually once when they got to the Eastern Conference Finals, I did have them winning because I'm like, Miami's a good team. They're a good defensive team, but I think defensively they're about even. If not, I think the Celtics are probably a better defensive team, but offensively,
definitely,
yeah. And offensively, it was just the Celtics were just so much. They're just so much better offensively than the Miami Heat.
Yes.
So I thought the winner between the Bucks and the Celtics series was going to make it the finals. But the Bucks didn't have Chris Middleton, so I mean, which is what I was going to ask you. Do you think the Bucks would have won that series if they had Chris Middleton? Against the Celtics.
What was it? A 6-game series?
It was a 7-game series.
7? Oh.
And it was it was like a tight series.
It would have been closer. I mean, I guess Chris Middleton would have been on Tatum, right?
Probably, yeah.
And he's their best defender. I think at least wing defender.
Yeah, I mean, Drew Holiday is a really good defender.
Drew Holiday's, yeah, you're right.
I mean, Drew Holiday is smaller. So, I mean, in terms of wing, perimeter defender, I'd probably give the edge to Drew, but I guess wing, in terms of a wing size, it's definitely Middleton.
Yeah, I think he would have been probably a little bit better matchup on Tatum. I think it would have been closer. I know it was a 7-game series, so it was already pretty close. That might have taken him over the top.
Yeah, because I think
at that point, seeing what I'm seeing now, I think Giannis would have gotten his second, but they didn't make it.
I mean, maybe because what was hurting the Bucks was Giannis. He looked exhausted at the end of the games, in the fourth quarter. I don't know if he was doing everything. He wasn't very efficient, but he was doing everything else. And it's so if you have Middleton there, it kind of helps alleviates that offensive chip on his shoulders. So. It still would have been a great series. I don't know which way it would have gone. I don't know which way it would have gone, but I know a lot of people
between
are saying
Bucks and the Golden State.
If Bucks beat Celtics, man, I don't know. I don't know.
It would have been a close series. However, I think so. I'm going to get into my prediction now. I was still deciding even before the game started yesterday, this is a real toss-up. And just looking at their numbers and some of their advanced metrics, I gave the edge slightly to Boston. I was thinking it's probably going to be a 7-game series, maybe a 6-game series.
For Boston?
For Boston, yeah.
Wow.
But what I saw yesterday was that was pretty impressive. I think it's still going to go 6 or 7, but to your.
Wait, you think it was impressive in the terms of it could be shorter for Boston? Is that what you mean?
Here's what I'm predicting.
Okay.
If Boston somehow pulls it off tomorrow, is it tomorrow? No.
It's Sunday.
It's over. It's a sweep. It's a 4-game series. What are you serious? Take two.
I mean,
on the road, it's over. maybe 5-game, maybe, but but they got to win on Sunday. If they don't, then I could see a 6 or 7-game series. Definitely.
Okay.
But the question I asked you first, I was probably going like Boston 55-45. It's now like it's reaffirmed my choice. It's probably like 25 in my book now. Boston.
Wow. I guess okay. So my prediction, I had the Warriors winning in 6.
Yes, of course.
And a lot of it just had to do with the Warriors' experience. And I thought they have just been, to me, I think they've been the best team all season. Yeah, even though there was Phoenix, but they're just, I don't know, with their Clay and Steph and now Jordan Poole. I just figured like they're really good, and this in their finals experience is going to get them over the hump. And I thought Boston's lack of finals experience was going to come back and kind of hurt them a little bit, but I still expected them to be competitive. But I did see like game 1, I kind of saw Golden State blowing them out. So when they were up, big in the third quarter, I'm like, this is what I saw happening, but I'm like, maybe Boston comes back game 2 and they steal game 2. But after last night's game, here's a couple things that impressed me.
Yes.
First thing was Steph Curry was hot in the first quarter. He did not miss.
I thought it was one of those Curry games where like
he had 21 points.
Yeah.
He was it like 5 for 7 from 3 or 6 for 8 or something?
Not missing, dude. He was
6. I think he made 6.
Yeah.
He had 21 points at the end of the first quarter. I'm like, Steph looks like he wants this finals MVP. Like he looks like
he hasn't got one yet.
No, he hasn't had one.
Wow.
Iggy won the first one. And
for keeping LeBron to like 45 points a game.
Yeah. LeBron led the every statistical category in the series, but they give it to Iggy. Because when Iggy was guarding him,
like he didn't let him score 60.
So I'm like, Steph, man, he looks hungry. But the thing that stood out to me was, yes, he's on fire, but they were only up 4 at the end of the first quarter. So I'm like, their best player is playing lights out, and it's only a 4-point game. So I was telling me the rest of the team wasn't playing that good, and the Celtics were able to counterpunch his points.
Yeah.
So that was the first impressive thing. The second impressive thing was the collective effort that came from Boston. Al Horford did his thing.
We gotta talk about Al Horford, by the way.
Jaylen Brown did his thing. Derek White came out of nowhere. He was hitting.
Dude
everything.
Was draining them.
I mean, these guys just. It was just impressive to see. Like there wasn't just one guy carrying the team. It was a collective group, a collective effort. And I guess the third thing was, I didn't even think about it until now. Was them not being phased by that Warriors run in the third quarter. Like most people, and like once they see that run, it's kind of demoralizing. It's like, here we go again. But they stuck around, they chipped away at the lead, and then Golden State went cold, and they were hitting everything. We were like freaking out because it was like they didn't miss.
They didn't miss. I was like, what?
After shot, contested 3, everything. Like they didn't miss. And some people will say like, well, they're not going to hit their shots all the time. I'm like, yeah, but at the same time, it's like, you expect all those guys to go cold? Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Al Horford. I didn't even mention Jason Tatum because he had a really bad game offensively.
He was the worst player in the entire game.
He was their worst player. I'm like, you're gonna expect a team that went 4-5 deep, all of them are gonna go cold? Like there's no way. I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I agree with all that. And like you were mentioning Tatum, Tatum is not going to have that night again. And there's just so many guys. They're so deep. They're so deep, Boston, that they're not all like. By the way, first of all, what's his name? Green. He's got his little podcast where he's got his
Draymond.
Draymond Green, and you saw the stuff he's saying, well, is it Horford and White and all them?
Yeah,
we can live with that. They ain't gonna go like, dude, focus on your team.
Yeah, exactly.
That, by the way, they've been to the final 6 times with this kind of core.
Yeah.
This might be the worst of the 6 starting off.
Really?
I think so. Now the one where they lost to Toronto, they started off. They were a better team starting off, and then injuries kind of got them.
Yeah. I'll give you that.
But I think this is the weakest Golden State Finals team. No one they weren't assured to be in the finals. I think Phoenix was the favorites.
Yeah.
And the whole season they were, they had some good runs, and sometimes they went cold.
Yeah, because I
don't know. What do you think? I think they're the weakest.
To me, I just think
6 teams.
They obviously the best team is Kevin Durant. Like any team,
Kevin Durant,
like the 2 Kevin Durant teams were the best. Probably 2018, where both him and Steph averaged like 26 for the regular season, and then they were both killing in the playoffs and the finals. That was probably at their best. But removing Kevin Durant, I think this is their deepest team.
What?
Yes. But you can say the 73-9 team is probably better. But this one, because
73-9 team was one of the greatest teams of all time.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely say that. To me, it was
79. You would take the 79 and
73-9
73-9 team against this team any day of the week. You would.
I mean, after last night's game, maybe. After last night's game, maybe. But going into the series, I'm like, this team is super stacked. But after what I saw was Klay Thompson, he had a couple of shots, but he was kind of like iffy. Jordan Poole, he's a really good player. He's young though.
He's young.
He wasn't having a great game yesterday. Like I said, even Draymond was not even defensively. Like Draymond wasn't really there. So I'm like, I like that you mentioned the whole Draymond thing, because it's like, what? I don't understand. Like, you're talking about like, oh, you can live with that. Like your team you guys didn't make a basket for 5-6 minutes in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Like you shouldn't be worrying about the other team.
His worst take was we dominated for 42 minutes.
Yeah.
No, you didn't.
We were literally talking about that. Like, what is he talking about? Like,
no, you didn't.
The only time you dominated was the third quarter.
Yeah,
and it was maybe like it was maybe like 7-8 minutes of the third quarter. That was it.
Yeah.
To say you dominated the 41-42 minutes, like
42 minutes, yeah.
You weren't watching the same. And like I know you were playing in the game, but from the outside looking in, you were not like in the first quarter. Steph was hitting everything. Steph was dominating.
It was only Steph,
and Steph was dominating. But the Celtics, they were punching back. Like they were hitting their shots, they were hitting their threes early on. I was like, whoa, Celtics aren't missing. Like Steph, I'm like, oh, there goes a Steph 3, and I'm like, here he goes. And then I was surprised, like Derek White would hit a 3. I'm like, okay. Al Horford would hit a 3. I'm like, okay. Marcus Smart hit like back-to-back threes. I'm like, okay. Like they were both shooting lights out, and by both, I mean one was Steph Curry, and then the other one was an actual the whole Boston Celtics team.
The whole Boston Celtics.
Yeah. They were going back and forth. It was Steph versus the Celtics. So when I saw that he was like, "Oh, we dominated 42 minutes," I'm like, "You didn't."
It also doesn't make sense when you look at the like 42 minutes. That leaves you like 6 minutes of non-dominating, and for you to lose by 12. Not only did they have to overcome the domination, they also dominated you to score.
That's why I'm like,
wait a second.
I'm like, you were dominating for 42 minutes and then you lost by 12 in the final 6.
Like, how much do you have to score to be dominated?
And they were up 12 going into the fourth.
Yes, they were.
So it was a 24-point swing. They were up 12 and they lost by 12.
They lost by 12. And then they dominated for 6 minutes.
And then
it's so stupid.
It was ridiculous because
he's got to stick to basketball. His hot takes right now, he's not JJ Redick. He's needs to stop
like that's when he was doing like the way he was doing his little podcast after game, like during the playoffs, it just came to me. It was rubbing me like, oh, like this is, it's a cakewalk. It is what it is. I don't really have to focus. I don't have to concentrate. Like, and now he's kind of downplaying, like, oh, we dominated 41, 42 minutes. It's like, I don't know, man. I don't know if that's
You're
true.
Not that great of an.
I don't think that's true at all.
You know, he's aiming for Chuck's job. He's aiming for that.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah. I mean, you could say like, obviously, you're trying to be confident, right? You know, elevate your team, but it's just funny to me. Like they were dominating for 42 minutes, and then the remaining 6 minutes was the one where they didn't hit a single basket. Like a team that's dominating doesn't go cold.
They don't
like
just go cold.
The final, I'm like
12.
that when it matters most in crunch time, the final 5 minutes of a game, that's when they didn't hit a basket. I'm like, I don't know, Draymond.
I don't know either. But the reason I say Golden State is they have. I think you're right. They might be deeper, but their best players are just not what they used to be.
I can see that. I can see. You can say, yeah, their core isn't the same.
The core isn't the same.
Yeah.
Curry he's still incredible. He's had some incredible games in the playoffs, but he's shooting worse now. You can see the gradual decline. It's going to continue just with age, right? And the injuries to Thompson, it's just not the same prime players.
Yeah.
Even though they're still a really good team. So we'll see what happens. I think it's going 6 or 7, but my pick is Boston. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was a sweep if they win on Sunday.
It's not crazy to say, but to me, my prediction going into the series was Golden State in 6, but at the same time, I am rooting for the Celtics. So if they win, I'm okay to be proven wrong.
Okay, so your prediction before the game, your prediction still Golden State in 6?
No. After game 1, it's probably I'd still say Golden State in 7.
Golden State in 7,
but I don't know. It could go either way. Like I agree. If Boston wins game 2, I don't know if it's a sweep, but they're winning in 5 games. Because I don't see maybe 6. Because I don't see. I don't.
If they win on Sunday, what are the chances of a sweep?
I mean, it goes up, but at the same time, it's like
by how much? What are the chances of a sweep right now? Give me
I don't think the sweep right now is not very. I wouldn't say that.
Give me a chances.
A percentage of a sweep, I'd say, I don't know, 10, 15%.
10, 15%. They win on Sunday. How much does it go up?
I would say probably to like 50%.
Yes, that's what I'm saying as well.
Yeah,
I'm saying I would say like 50%. Win, there's a coin flip, and a coin flip is a coin flip.
Because I mean, I think the game that'll determine that if they win Sunday, and then if they win game 3.
Oh.
It's like
it's like 90%.
Yeah, at that point it's done. Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, that's gonna be obviously determined. Can Golden State go and win game 4 after being down 3-0? Maybe, and then they could maybe win game 5 at home, but I don't see them going back to. I don't see them winning down 3-0. Like that won't happen.
No,
I think if they win, if they lose both games at home, the series is like Boston's winning the series.
Okay.
I don't.
Well, you still don't believe it'll be a sweep.
I don't think it'll be a sweep. It'll probably be 5 games. I don't think it'll go past.
So you're saying if they lose on Sunday, you're still not calling it a sweep because Golden State will somehow not be demoralized over in Boston. Like
I mean,
I'm telling you,
it's the playoffs. This is where the teams. This is where they play their best, and we haven't seen this. I don't remember the last time there was a sweep in the finals. Well, I mean, with KD and Golden State, obviously they swept. Yeah. It was 5 games the first time around, and there was a sweep in 2018. But I mean,
I'm saying is that the chances of a sweep have increased. It's still, like you said, it's still small. I would say right now, it's probably 10, 15% chance. If they win on Sunday, it's a coin flip, and I would bet money at that point of a sweep because
I would say if Boston wins game 2, my money would be that they win game 3.
Yeah, and then that's it. That's the sweep, dude.
I would,
We'll see. Exciting.
Let's see. So, all right. Moving on to the end of the regular season. So, this question that I wanted to ask and I wanted to get your take on was a question that I saw. It was looming. It was roaming around social media several weeks ago. Once like the Nets were swept in the first round. And I want to get your take on it and see how you feel about this. So the question was,
yes,
who had a worse season, the LA Lakers or the Brooklyn Nets? Now, keep in mind, Brooklyn got swept in the first round, but the Lakers, they didn't make the playoffs. So that's why it was an interesting question. I made a TikTok about this. I don't know if you saw it. We haven't really discussed this. So that's why I was curious to get your insight on this.
Yeah. As I was thinking about it, I guess just like from the surface level, you have to give the worst series to the team that didn't make the playoffs. That not even the play in, not even the play in. When you have 3 top 75 players, wait, did the Nets also have 3 top 75?
Kyrie didn't make it.
Kyrie didn't make it,
or did he? I don't think Kyrie made it.
Okay, but the Lakers definitely had 3 top 75s.
Yes, the Lakers did. Kyrie did not make it.
No, the only I is Allen Iverson. So Irving did not make it.
Yeah.
Okay, but like top 100 players, you know, I think you can put Kyrie in the top 100.
Yeah.
You
can say top 25 today, top 20 today.
Kyrie, yeah. When he plays, I have to get like his. I deeply dislike the man for a lot of reasons.
I'm right there with you, but I mean, when it comes to basketball,
he can play ball. He can ball.
Is insane.
He's top 25 right now, maybe top 20. Who had the worst? I don't know, man. I don't think I can answer that. One team.
I think you can.
You think you can?
Yes.
Okay. I want to hear what what you have to say about this.
So, kind of how you said, one didn't even make the play in. So right off the bat, that's just bad. Like when you got 3, I don't know if you can say Russ is a superstar anymore, but he's still all-star caliber, I would say. He's still all-star caliber. He's just playing alongside LeBron. Yes. If guys like, not to hate on like, I think DeJounte Murray is a really good player, but he was an all-star. Andrew Wiggins was an all-star starter. LaMelo Ball's a all-star. Russell Westbrook can still be a starter. He was just playing alongside LeBron. He's all-star caliber for sure.
I don't know, dude. I think that's a little stretch, but go ahead.
Okay.
Make your point.
But I think why I would say they're worse is because you can kind of give the Nets, they have a little bit of more excuses and more more of reasons of why their season failed. Kyrie wasn't there at the beginning of the season. He missed a good portion of it because he was anti-COVID vaccine.
Okay.
So there was a New York mandate. He couldn't play.
Yes.
And then they started getting injured. Players started getting COVID. And then instead of continuing to give
everybody started getting COVID.
Yeah. So instead of trying to continue to give players like Joe Johnson 10-day contracts, they're like, you know what?
Joe Johnson came back.
You know what? We're already paying this guy. So why don't we just use him at least part-time? You know, we're instead of continuing to pay Joe Johnson, we have this superstar or star.
Joe Johnson, man.
Superstar sitting on his couch. We can at least use him for road games. So let's bring him back. But he can only play road games. So he wasn't fully there. At the beginning of the season, the Nets were playing really good. Kevin Durant was in MVP conversation because the Nets were top team in the league.
Yes.
Or in the East. He gets hurt in January. So at that point, they're down to James Harden. And then James Harden isn't the James Harden we once knew. So he can't carry. He isn't as good as he once was.
Watching him decline.
So with all that, they weren't fully intact. They were never really again together as a whole. And then James Harden was traded for Ben Simmons, and then Ben Simmons didn't play. So I think they have more of a legit reason of why their season didn't pan out. It's still a disaster because if Kyrie was there, like the full season, even Kevin Durant gets hurt, I think James Harden is still there. I don't think James Harden maybe he requested trade. Probably not. They probably don't trade him because I still think they're still a top 6 team in the East. But because of all that, I think they have a more legit reason of why their season didn't go as planned. And then come playoff time, Boston was just so much better. And then they didn't really have a whole lot of time to really mesh and play well together. But I think they have a more legit reason of why their season was as bad as it was. The Lakers, I said it from the beginning. I know hindsight is always 2020, but I said it from the beginning. Russ and LeBron James just not going to work well together. They're just not. Like Russ, I love the guy. I don't hate Russell Westbrook. I was a huge fan of him when he was in OKC. Just the way he played, like the energy he brought, like that. I loved watching him play, but he doesn't play winning basketball. He's not efficient. He can't shoot. And those are things that players, when you play alongside LeBron, you need to be able to do those things. And Russ just couldn't do that. He never could do that. So I'm like, now that he's older, I don't know why they thought it was good. Yeah, to me, it was probably they were thinking, well, we'll give LeBron James a little bit of a rest so Russ can carry us a little bit. But then Anthony Davis got hurt, and they're like, well, there goes that. Now we got to use LeBron James a lot more than we thought we were going to have to use him this season. And then there goes that. But from the beginning, I'm like, this isn't going to work out. But both of them, the Lakers and the Nets, were title favorites coming into the season.
Those were the two favorites. I think a lot of the reasons you listed for why the Nets were a favorite, you can apply to the Lakers. But
but not really.
Well, the injuries, how many games did LeBron play?
He played a decent amount.
He played like 50. No, 52, 53.
Vamos a ver.
But not just LeBron, but also the other dude.
As Charles Barkley calls him, Straight Clothes Davis.
And Straight Clothes Davis. He's always injured, man. So yeah, the Nets had Kyrie out because of his stupidity, but the Lakers had a bunch of players, their stars out for injury, not stupidity, but injury.
Let's see LeBron James. I'm looking up how many games he played.
I think he was just short of.
He played 56 games, so he missed.
He missed like 26.
That's 26 games. Yeah,
that's like 1/3 of the season, dude. How many did Davis miss?
Davis missed a lot. I know that, but at the same time,
even for a lot of the time, you have a aging Westbrook. All that to say is that I think you can make the case that a lot of it was circumstantial for the Lakers as well. Who had the worst one? I'll give it to you. I think the Lakers had the worst one because they did this to themselves. It was, everybody could see that Westbrook was just not going to be a good fit on that team. And LeBron pulled that move knowing that. I don't think the Nets could have foreseen COVID, the restrictions, and then Kyrie being a dummy. So I think.
So AD only played 40 games.
That's crazy. So he
missed half the season.
So I'll agree with you that the Lakers had the worst season because it was kind of avoidable. They could have gone for what's the guy in Sacramento?
Buddy Hield.
Yes, that would have been such a better fit, and then they didn't have to give up their depth. No. And I don't know if they would have been championship contenders, but definitely better than what
they had out there. Yes. So yeah, I mean Anthony Davis missed 40 games, but this is so I did a little bit of research when I did this TikTok for this.
Yeah.
This is the first time in NBA history since they've been tracking or since they've been doing like betting odds at the beginning of the season that the top two favorites didn't get past the first round of the playoffs.
Wow.
In NBA history, this is the first time. So
that's crazy.
You can they were both utter failures. Like they were both disasters. Right. So the second part to that question that we were discussing was that I know you want to get into was this idea of super teams.
Yeah.
And these are two prime examples of them just not quite working out. So do you think the NBA or the league or teams are going to kind of shy away from creating these super teams now and kind of going into like a more homegrown style? Because the two teams in the finals right now
are homegrown. Homegrown. Yeah, I think if you look at the ROI all the way back to I'm going to say this is the first super team, but I'm sure someone on your listeners are going to say, but no, there was a super team before that. I just can't think of it. But going back to like the Lakers, Gary Payton, Karl Malone, and looking at all the super teams that were built after that. So the Lakers, then the Heat, then the Lakers again, with
Dwight
Nash and Howard, and then I don't know. We can talk about whether the Durant Warriors were a super team assembled because they added the one. They added.
I was.
Who knows? Maybe they are. Well, I'm going to leave them off. But then now the Lakers again, Lakers for the third time, and then the Nets. And you look at all the combined seasons of those teams, and there's 2 championships amongst them. It's the Heat in 11-12, and one of them was thanks to Ray Allen that they won it. It could be one right now. They were one shot away from being only one championship amongst all of those super teams. So you look at, if I'm an owner, I look at that and say, the return on investment is just not there. They do put butts in seats though, and they generate a lot of revenue. Not championships, at least you get money, but you also have to pay a ton of money, like the luxury tax and all that. I would say if I'm an owner, I'm staying away from the super team craziness and try to build based on assets, based on fundamental players, right? That have a role, and you can build a team with specific roles. That's the route I would take, and it's been clear. The teams that are in the finals now, and then historically, the teams that are winning are those teams that just mesh together better and are just each player has a specific role that they've mastered.
Yeah, I agree. Because there hasn't really been, and like I was gonna get into like the Golden State Warriors. I think they're a special occasion because the core was homegrown. Like the core was, they were built to the draft, and then they just added a piece.
They added one piece.
One of the probably the greatest piece that they could ever add to that team.
Yeah. It was the greatest piece outside of LeBron, dude. Seriously. The second best player in the entire league.
Yeah. And they shown they were 73-9. They lost in the finals, but they were a terrific team. And then they just added a piece. People are gonna say this is nasty or this is gross because I don't know.
Is this a nasty take? This is a
nasty take for saying that there wasn't a super team. And you can say they're a super team. They're just a different. They weren't. Yes, there were different circumstance for them and how their super team was built. Now, the one team I would say was there was a super team, was assembled a little differently, was the Boston Celtics because they acquired. I mean, it was through trades, but you can say this. I mean, the Nets, like KD and Kyrie, came together, but then they traded for James Harden. Same thing with the Lakers. They traded for Anthony Davis and Russell Westbrook. So I've always considered the Boston Celtics a super team, but again, they only won one chip.
Back to them. Then they have like at least 3 seasons where they
made the finals. They made the finals 08. In 09, they lost to LeBron or the Magic. Because the Magic made the finals in 09.
The Magic. They lost to the Magic.
And then they made the finals again in 2010, and they lost to the Lakers. They lost to Kobe. And then 2011 came, and Miami was assembled.
Yeah, they took that.
So they had 3 seasons, and out of 3 years, they won one chip.
They only won one championship. And I mean, I guess a championship's a championship. If I were the Bulls, I'll take that. I'll take that. By the way, and you don't remember. I mean, you do remember when we looked at all the trades the Bulls were making, and we just weren't impressed. Like, they're gonna end up like 6th seed. It's just not impressive. And then they started off so hot. Like, what the heck?
Yeah.
They reverted back to the mean, and it exactly the team we thought they were going to be. Like Danny Green, R.I.P. They were who we thought they were. They were.
Yeah. And I mean, we can talk about that a little for a second because I've always said, I'm like, I don't know if I trust this Bulls team, man. There's just something about them. There was just something there as a Bulls fan, I was the one that was watching these games. I'm like, they're playing okay, but I'm like, come playoff time, this one that's really going to matter. And I don't see these guys. None of these guys can, like Zach LaVine had never made the playoffs. Vucevic has made the playoffs, but he's never been like, and never had a good playoff performance. DeMar, he had his woes with Toronto. He could never get past LeBron James. He had okay playoff series, but like just collective unit. The only one that had experience was Alex Caruso, and he's a solid player, but that's not enough to win. So I'm like,
not enough to win. Yeah,
I'm like, this team is they're kind of one of those teams that just built for the regular season.
Sixth seed. It was
yeah.
All along. We kind of were 6th or 5th.
They remind me of like the Toronto team with DeMar and Kyle Lowry, the Clippers, the Lob City Clippers. They're even the current Utah Jazz. They're just a regular season team, but come playoff time, they don't have enough to win. And I don't know what it is. So, but I digress. But going back to these super teams, I agree. There hasn't been, enough evidence or enough to show like, yeah, it's worth it. Look at the Lakers. The Lakers gave up so much depth for Russell Westbrook, and look what that got them.
Yeah.
The Nets, they gave up so much.
They give up so much
for James Harden. Look what that got them. Yeah, they got Ben Simmons now and Seth Curry, but
it's worse, dude. I'm not sure he's ever going to put on a Nets jersey, to be honest.
We'll see. I don't think he's a bad fit because he doesn't have to be the scorer that he had to be in Philly once Jimmy left. Like he had to like really become a more of like a offensive threat. When he's playing alongside Kyrie and Kevin Durant, they can hide his offensive scoring, like inability to score, and just make him be the playmaker and the play creator that he can be, almost like Draymond in the Golden State Warriors, and just focus on his defense. Like he's still a terrific, he's still an all around great player, minus his scoring inabilities. Like his scoring inabilities really hurt him.
He's got such a weak,
but his mindset doesn't help him.
Yeah.
Like his mindset does not help him, but
yeah, he's like Green, like he's got the right mind. I don't like him very much, but his mindset for the game works well.
Yeah.
Whereas you get the sense from Simmons that he doesn't really care about basketball. He doesn't.
No. And you definitely get that vibe where it's like he's good.
Like, hey, I'm a millionaire. I'm a young guy.
Yeah, he's got all the
good for him. That's a good life.
He's got all the talent and the skill.
Yeah,
play really good basketball, but yeah, I think those intangibles, he doesn't have those intangibles of
because he doesn't care, dude. He's got it all now. He's got everything he needs at this point.
Yeah,
and basketball is like, well, I guess I'll play when I want to play. But I think like what we've seen over the last few years with like this player empowerment stuff is going to change. Like with the next collective bargaining agreement, the owners are going to take a stand and say, this can't happen anymore. We can't sign a player to max deals for them to just not play.
Yeah, I agree. But all that to
say, yes, Lakers had the worst season. Super teams aren't.
They're not the answer. You got to go homegrown.
And you see it in other sports, like the early 2000s Yankees, the Galacticos and Real Madrid, where they brought Beckham and Zidane and Raúl and all sorts of awesome players. Didn't do much. It generates news and money, but like
because the greatest dynasties at least in the NBA are all homegrown. Warriors, Bulls, Spurs,
even Lakers. They did trade for Shaq, but everything else was homegrown.
Yeah. And when they got Kareem, but I mean they drafted Worthy, Magic, the Celtics, they drafted Bird, McHale. So all these great dynasties, all these great franchises are all homegrown. So like super team, you can get maybe one chip, maybe two in like a 4 or 5 year span.
Yes.
But and then it ends.
As
opposed to homegrown teams like the Warriors, they've been look at how good they've been for how long. The Spurs were great for 2 decades.
2 decades. Tim Duncan never missed the playoffs.
That's insane.
Come on,
man. The Bulls dominated the entire 90s. The Magic Lakers and the Bird Celtics dominated the 80s. So like history shows us homegrown teams
There's no shortcuts.
Nope. So that's going to be it for this first half of this episode, you guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe on wherever you're listening from. Make sure you guys follow me on all my social media platforms. I am on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at @AroundTheNBA_podcast. And stay tuned for the second half of this episode with my brother, Captain Crunch. Thanks again, guys.